Welcome, Wapplers from around the world. This is our September 2024 Wappler Meetup. We meet on the second Friday of each month. You can keep track of the meetings and the recordings from the forum. If you are a Wappler with something you'd like to share, you have a tip or a trick or a new site that you'd like to show off, or even get some feedback from other Wapplers, the meetups are a great place to accomplish that. Just reach out to Mark One in the forum, and we'll be happy to hook you up. Today, we have a very special guest. Keith is going to show us his Bright site, which has made quite a hit online. And we're going to turn it over to Keith.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you for allowing me to come on here and show the progress I've made on the app. It's still a work in progress. Hopefully, we'll be able to do some initial testing with hopefully some Wapplers here very shortly. But yeah, so BrightYard is really like an all-in-one work management app that will essentially take a bunch of tools that you're probably used to using, like email, real-time chat, and other things like task management, and put them all in one system. So let me share my screen. And before I get started, I just wanted to, that's the wrong screen. Okay, are you seeing the trail to the beach?
Yes.
Wonderful. And the reason why I'm not in camera, I was talking to Mark and the others that joined a little earlier, that I moved cross country. So I moved from the East Coast of the US to the West Coast. It was like, 2,400 miles of driving, but this is where I moved to. So lots of mountains and lakes and high desert and all of that. Okay, so moving on to the app. This, I'm just going to start with the app, show you the server component of it, and then we can move into the Wappler editor if anybody has any specific questions about the code. The way this is built, and for certain reasons, specifically to be able to have Gmail data within the app, I went with an Electron app. So all of the data is stored locally on the user's device, at least for emails. It's really might look familiar to other systems that you use like Outlook or Gmail. And so this is fully integrated with Gmail. We can even see that in here. We have Mark's email about this meetup today. So majority of the Gmail actions are in here. There's some that still need to be built out, like being able to create labels. But the whole point of Wappler is to give you the ability to have really like that 360-degree view between all of the types of data you may work with, especially as if you're an agency or you're working with clients. I wanted to make sure that email was really tightly integrated with contacts. So if this was a contact, I could come in here and save it. And then this gets actually pushed into a contact module. It populates their email, their full name. You have the ability to have their address. If you wanted to actually modify this person, you can go directly into the contact screen, which we can see for some reason is broke. But that's the whole point of Wappler, or not Wappler, of BrightYard, is to have all of these actions linked together, so that you're not having to go to multiple tools. And that was a problem I have, is that I have Slack for chat, and Outlook for email, and some other system for task management. And throughout the day, where those communications happen tend to get lost. So having them all in one tool to where you're able to search for the chats and the contacts and the emails together, should hopefully make the people who use BrightYard more efficient in their day. So that's email. Moving on to tasks. I tried to make the UI consistent to where the look and feel of the email and the task and the contacts are all similar, and all the actions are similar, so that when you click in, you basically have the same type of view. Within tasks and contacts, there is the actual like work activity fields. And the idea is to be able to have a whole bunch of these. So long-term to be able to have not just notes, but meetings, and other items related to this. But in these, depending on the task, you have the ability to see all the details on the right. Again, if you wanted to edit it, you just go in and you have a form to actually edit it. I've built out pretty robust, filtering systems. So if you just wanted to see, things that are in progress and completed, you can see both of those. Maybe you just wanted to see the high priority items that are in those. So all of these filters work together for the most part, and you can select multiples of them. And then you also have labels. So I think this is one of the things that a lot of people really want is be able to create labels and categorize the types of records that they're working on. So I have a label system that allows you to have both account level labels that can be shared if you have multiple people working in this with you, as well as private labels, so that you as an individual can categorize things just for yourself inside of a team. And this labeling system, the idea is to have this across all the different record types. So tasks, contacts, etc. They all have those labels. And there's also search built in, so that if you wanted to just search for, things based on many of the different fields, whether it's the assignee or the status or the description, the search will search across all of those at the same time. Moving on to contacts, looks very similar. Again, we have some filters that go between leads and contacts and starred, as well as the label system. I've also built in a pinning action. I don't know if anybody ever used Inbox from Google. That was my favorite email client. And they had the concept of being able to pin items. So maybe there's something that you want to always keep at the top. All you have to do is, click the flag for right now, which will change to a pin at some point as an icon. It allows you to keep those items relevant and at the top of your view at all times. So looking at contacts, very similar to the others, you'll have notes, emails, and tasks. And actually, let me look at a person who has some emails. You have the ability to have a whole bunch of notes in here. And going back to that 360-degree view, the ability from a contact to actually see the emails and task and everything else that may be related to that person that you're working on. So no matter which module you go into, you still have that rich view of that individual. Finally, companies. So these are the 4 modules that have been built out so far: the email, task, clients, and companies. And again, labeling system and the same UI defined through all of them. And the nice thing about the UI that I have is that it is responsive, so that if we go into a mobile app, the view will just basically be the same, slightly different functionality, in terms of like what shows and what doesn't. But for the most part, that is the Wappler app. Any questions before we move on to the server part of the app?
I have a host of questions, but I think I'd like to save them until after the server part.
You got it. Okay. All right. So the server part, holds all of the non-email data. So tasks, contacts. So that allows you to, be able to use it with anyone that's working with you. So if you have a team of people, all of that data will be, available to everyone. And then the part of the UI that's used for the server app is just management, right? Like when you sign up, when you add subscriptions, this is where subscriptions, when you initially sign up, you'll select a subscription to begin with. But over time, if a subscription becomes inactive, or you need to change it, there is a ability to do that in here. And this is hooked into Stripe. So when you go through this process, you actually are creating those Stripe accounts. You have ability to manage a team, and that includes inviting individuals. So once you invite a member, you can assign a role to them. Right now, there are two roles, user and admin. And then they have to go through the process. They'll get an email. They'll actually sign up. And once they sign up, a user is created for them. So you can see that this Lissa Joy is actually attached to this user here. And they accepted the invite and they became a user. We also have downloads. Since we are doing an Electron app, all the downloads will be hosted in here, similar to how Wappler does, to be able to actually download the application. Right now, the application is set up to actually auto update as well. So when we push new updates, the individuals that have the app will get a notification that there's a new update to it, and it'll auto install for them. And finally, we have a profile settings. This is just a place for users to change their password, update their username, and also see activity that is in here of every time they've signed on. So those are the two main components of the BrightYard application. And yeah, I'll stop there, and then any questions you may have.
First, I have to say, wow, this is quite an undertaking. Can you, from the beginning, start from the beginning and kind of give us a 52,000-foot flyby of what you did first and what process you followed to develop this?
So this is a long running passion project of mine. I actually started on another low code, no code platform long ago, and ran into some, specifically Google, data requirements where they implemented some pretty strict like security verification that you had to go through in order to be able to really store data in a server. So that led me to looking for a new system to be able to, store data locally. And through my search, I found Wappler, and it is taking time of proposing feature requests for the Wappler team to actually create the abilities that I needed to really build this. So it's taken a few years to get to this point, but fortunately, the wonderful Wappler team is continued to add the features that were necessary for this. And it's just been one of those things that I've just worked on after work and on weekends to get to this point.
Well, that's awesome. Did you start with the database? Did you start with the design? What was the first step?
Yeah, I mean, I think, with most development, like starting with, at least having an initial rough draft of what the database design is going to look for is generally the way I go about doing things, just because that's going to, lead you to the rest of the development. You got to really start with that base structure. And that, has evolved over time, as I've started to build out different features for the system. And from there, it's working on really the integrations with Gmail is one of the more complex parts. There's lots of actions that have to happen for how you have to process their emails. So that took a really long time to set up within the system. And then the rest of it is pretty straightforward. The other parts are fairly easy within Wappler of just creating tables and the UI around that. And like over time for me, like the UI was the part where it went through a few different iterations before getting to this specific one where we have essentially the sidebar and the table of records, and the same like look as you click in where you're going from that table to the individual detail, and then just showing things like the sidebar to get to that consistent look and feel across the whole UI.
Beautiful. The UI is looks world class. Is this something that it looks like something you developed from scratch?
No, there are much better, designers out there for UI. So I leveraged something that was already for the most part done, and then tweaked it to get to this type of UX where the experience is the way it looks right now.
Oh, that's awesome. I'd like to open up the floor. I've taken up too much time here. Please jump in, Wapplers.
Yeah, that,
Yes, I'm just wondering, how many databases did you use for this? Just the one or more?
How many databases?
Correct, yeah.
So there's a SQLite database that's running for mainly the mail and settings that related to the desktop app. And then there's a Postgres database for the server.
how easy was it to integrate the design, all the CSS and everything that you've used into Wappler so that you can easily use the Wappler UI for laying out the pages?
The CSS is not integrated into Wappler. I don't use Wappler for CSS. So, all of that's handled in a file outside of Wappler for the most part. Yeah, I know that, I think there are certain, ways to go about it. And I think just trying to do all of that, even like the coloring within Wappler, was just not the most efficient path forward, especially since all of that was already existing within a style sheet.
That makes sense.
And one other question from me, the refresh animation that you show when data's being pulled down, is that an animated GIF or is that a Lottie or that? Yeah.
It is a gift. It runs on the execute state of the server connector that actually I think it's a flow. Within here, it's a flow and that has a bunch of server connects in it. So whenever that's running, it shows. And I mainly built that originally just to even make sure that it was refreshing. Ideally, at some point, I will build in, a pub sub system to where it's just sending notifications whenever there are new emails. Right now, there is a scheduler that runs every minute. And when that scheduler kicks off, that's when you'll see that icon show up. Or when you click between the different labels. So there's also a lot of indexing that I've set up within the SQLite database just to speed up, because there's probably 20,000 emails in here that it's going through. And before indexing, it was kind of slow, and the indexing has made it be a second or two when you or less than a second when you switch between these.
And sorry, one more from me. Is this a PHP or Node.js app?
Node.js. Technically, this is just all HTML and JS because this is a desktop app. But there is Node within the Electron app.
Excellent.
Our other Wapplers are picking the drawers off their desks and thinking of questions to ask. Would you be kind enough to show us one of your server actions?
Sure. So there are, a lot of server actions, within here. I think one of the things that, I used was to use a lot of custom queries within here, specifically for being able to do that, like, almost full text search, just built in through custom queries though. Which one is that? There's some cleanup that has to happen in here, but in terms of queries, like they're pretty complex in terms of the joins that they do, and they're joining a whole bunch of different tables. So you've got things about the subtypes of different types of emails that a person can have. So within contacts, you can have multiple emails. So if you have a contact, you may have their work email and their office email. The same thing for addresses. I built all of those with types, so you can have multiple types of those objects related to a contact. So this is really just, building out the query to find all of that information. And then there's a bunch of joins that happen between, the different tables. So like contact has a company, the contact has labels. They also have user actions. So the user actions are, where you define the things like the starring and the pinning of the individual contacts. So those have to be specific to the user when you're in a team of people, right? So, if I pin something, I don't want anybody else to have that pin show. So there's a subtable of a contact that allows you to store the pins for those individual people. And so, I mean, there's just a lot of different logic that goes into here, to actually build that query, taking into account all the different, potential, variables that may happen for the query. But there's a lot of different actions that happen in terms of, the different tables. My way of thinking is, going through what I think are, standards that I've worked with APIs over the years, where normally you just have one API like contacts, and depending on how you interact with that, whether you're doing a get or a post, that's what drives sort of the branching that you do within the API. So I've set up conditions. Along with the conditions are like the get condition. Then you go down a level. If they provided a contact ID as part of that, get URL, then it goes down here to get the individual contact. If not, then it basically goes through these others. If there was a search parameter in there, then we go this direction for the search, and all the way down until the bottom. This would be the last thing that happens, and this is just the normal query that would happen when you initially show the page. So all of my main tables, like the contacts, the companies, the tasks, they all look like this. There's also a permission structure that's built in. So there's a table that actually holds permissions that are related to those roles. So right now there's admin and user, but there's nothing, stopping me long-term from getting more granular with those. So I come from a background of working in enterprise SaaS solutions. And so I have a good understanding of how those things are built. And this structure allows me to have that granularity long term, to be able to build all different types of roles, that are specific to the individual modules, right? So let's say I want to roll out the real-time chat, but I want to make that a feature that's only available for people on the team plan. So I can easily tie those together just through the roles and permissions, and ensure that users aren't getting access to the parts of the system that they're not paying for.
That sounds very powerful.
Did you find it easy using custom queries? Do you use Wappler's pagination feature?
So in the custom queries, the pagination's already built in. You can see it down here at the bottom of the limit and offset. So I mean, I think Wappler, whether you're using just the standard queries or custom queries, like, they've already got all those things built in. But I mean, these are like just standard, like SQL capabilities. So even in the custom queries, you can, set up that pagination. And in the way that works within the system is, I mean, you can see it right here where, essentially it just shows the next page, and you just click on the next page, and it's sending that limit and offset whenever I click the button, and running the query again based on those two variables.
So you've done that not using Wappler's pagination generator?
No, I have not. It's really just using the on-click and setting those two values.
Yeah, the reason I ask is that seems to be a a blip, not a blip, but a downside with Wappler. If you do a custom query, you can't use the built-in pagination. You have to. It
Okay.
has to be a paginated query. So as soon as I want to do something a little more complex than a standard select with some joins or whatever, you lose the ability to have the built-in pagination. So I just
Yeah, and
wonder
I mean,
around that.
and I think some of the capabilities that Wappler have, like I would have been pushing the limits on them. So I just went the route of still using Wappler. What is it? Next page. Um, Wappler's capabilities, but in a different way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Trying to find. There it is. So I'm using the query set. So I have a query manager on here, and just the name of that is just P. It could be page, but I push the number to it. If they're clicking up, I just add one to it, and that triggers the update to the query. And then once the query is updated, I have a on update that runs that query again within the system.
John,
Also, the other thing I did within here is use the I don't remember what it's called. It has to do with the browser where you push, like you change the URL so that the back and forward buttons also work within here. That basically as you go back, it'll go back to pages. So whenever it is, I think it's a pop state. So whenever you're basically popping in a new URL, it reruns everything so that you're going essentially backwards or forwards, and it's updating all of the states. So all of these things are controlled by query parameters to change all of the values.
Superb.
I was going to chime in on this particular subject because I've run into that as well, where I'm wanting custom queries, but also wanting to use the built-in Wappler pagination. And what I usually do is just create views, and then it works perfectly with the Wappler pagination.
Yeah, that's exactly how I now do it.
I mean, I think that's really the power of Wappler is that they've built in all of these really low level base functionalities that hook into the browser or hook into other things, and there's multiple ways to really accomplish the same outcome.
Agree.
How easy did you find integrating or connecting with Gmail's data?
Laborious. It was a lot of trial and error. These are all the different Gmail actions. Essentially, some of these actually aren't even being used anymore. I sort of combined, like the message list is the one that is doing most of the processing of the emails. And there's lots of things you have to take into account because there's like history, and the way that they once you've gotten the emails, like they give you basically a random, not a random number, an incrementing number for the next history that you can get. And there's a bunch of different like conditions in here that it goes through depending on if it's the first time you've ever gotten an email or the second time you've ever gotten an email. And then just the little things like everything you get in terms of like new records. The way that Gmail sends you that data is really kludgy. And so you have to look through, what type of, update it is, whether it's removing a label or updating a message or adding a label. All of those, basically go in these conditions to run through those types of new messages that it's saying it is in order for me to update the SQLite database with those specific updates.
I figured it was going to be complicated, but I didn't realize it'd be that complicated. That looks
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, I started to try to use the Pouch DB in previous iterations of this. It unfortunately didn't really work the way I wanted it to. And so, I commented a lot of that out. I really need to just go in here and remove all of this before I, release this to the public. But, SQLite was really the better way to go. And so there's a lot of stuff that needs to be removed out here.
Do I understand, Keith, that you're not only receiving Gmail messages, but you're also sending Gmail messages?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, the whole idea long term is every action that you can take within the Gmail client, you'll also be able to take within here. Right now, I am still working on the actual sending of emails. I'm sure you might have seen some posts I've had in the system about, trying to integrate TipTap. So I've gotten that extension almost to a point where it's functional. And what happens is, you're going to click the reply to, it takes you down here. And this is actually the TipTap editor. Unfortunately, it's doing some weird stuff to the email right now. It's adding a bunch of, basically TipTap is changing the HTML and like replacing certain parts of it. And that's not ideal for email content. And I need to figure out how to override that so that this email looks exactly like this email when you go to do a reply. But the other actions, like if you actually read an email, whenever you click on one of these, you can see a slight difference where this one isn't bold. Whenever you click on an email, I'm actually sending back to Gmail that it's been read. So if you use any other client, the regular Gmail client, or on your mobile phone, it's in sync with all those devices.
Wow, that's a nice feature. What are you using for an SMTP server?
These are all APIs, so they're interacting directly with Gmail, eventually with Microsoft. So there's no SMTP servers, just all API actions.
So you're going to have 365 integration as well.
Yeah, so that's what I, in the previous, using Bubble, 365 was the first email client I built. And then once I completed that, I started to work on Gmail, and that's where I ran into their new data policies that basically made it financially enabled to really build it in Bubble with using their servers, because it would have been, at that time, like a $75,000 security audit on the application.
And now a massive data usage, monthly usage from them as well, presumably.
Yeah. Wappler is by and far a much better solution for apps like this.
It's really good to see just the sheer power of what can be done. So
Yeah.
Well played with that. And it looks, I genuinely thought when you first shared your screen, I genuinely thought we were looking at your Gmail account.
Yeah. That was the trying to make it something that was going to be easy for users to switch when they do, right? So that they, everything they're used to doing, they can still, understand very quickly how to use the system.
So presumably this will be rolled out as a subscription service.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pricing wise, I'm not sure where to land. I mean, this is a very, competitive space in terms of all the different, applications that are out there. When I started this, idea, there were very few, if any, SaaS offerings that tied email into all these other things. And now there are, companies like ClickUp and a few others that, actually have email clients as part of their offerings. But this was like the missing part of most sort of CRM type systems that I've seen in the past. It's always like email is a separate client that you have to use. They're not really tightly integrated.
I'm going to keep a close eye on it. I use ClickUp for my
Yeah.
all my project management and whatever. So very interested to see if this could replace it.
Yeah. And the idea long term is, once the TipTap editors got all of the functionality, is to build in some other modules like a document or a notes module that allows you to, create long form documents that then you can relate to all of these, different parts, the contacts, etc.
Brilliant.
Do you see individuals using this, or mostly teams, or a combination of both?
I'm hoping a combination of both. I think, this can be used by freelancers or individuals. Some of the things like real-time chat won't, at least initially, that's meant more for teams. So this is really built for, I think, like agencies or those that have more than one individual that want to work on items together. But there's not really anything, limiting that an individual couldn't use it as well. Things like, tasks and contacts, even if you're a one person shop, these are the types of things you would, I think would want in terms of being able to manage the work that you're doing, or even personal. I think, this potentially has a play on just being used for really all of the things, your to-do list, that, if your shopping list, anything like that, you could really, put into here. You could use contacts for all your family members, and tasks could be shared between you and your wife or your significant other, for things. I know with my wife, like right now we use Google Keep for a lot of that stuff, like our grocery list and those types of things where, this system could use that and actually has, more capabilities. And if you don't want something as simple as Google Keep, to be able to, document, categorize, and really, run all of those types of things you're doing in your daily life.
And where's the data actually stored? Like the emails from Gmail, is that still kind of in Google's storage, or did you say you copied them locally?
They're copied locally. There's a SQLite database that holds that information. That's really all as of now, the SQLite database is doing is the emails for the individual. So those aren't shared with anyone. No one else has access to them. Even I, as like the administrator or owner of this app, don't have access to that data. It's just on your local machine. But the tasks and the contacts, those are all stored on the server so that you have the ability for others to also use this system.
So if I was logged in on my desktop and my mobile and my laptop, I would have 3 SQLite copies of the data, but because they're all synchronized with Google, all the devices synchronize with each other effectively.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, that's how, Google works. You have a Gmail on your phone, it's storing, that local cache of the emails.
Yeah. Brilliant.
I have a question. I might have missed it before. One of the things that drives me crazy is there's so many different forms of communication these days, whether telephone, text, email, and beyond. And is there a search for this where you could search for like a conversation, like if we wanted to talk about the Bright Yard meetup, if every email, every text, every whatever would be listed in Bright Yard meetup, so we could like follow the conversation, follow the thread.
Yes. So that is the idea of a global search across all the different modules. Right now, like the search is limited, and there's hotkeys, so I don't know if everybody notices if I'm pressing Control S to actually show the search and Escape to get rid of it. But search right now is just within the individual modules. So within task, it's searching across all of these different fields. So, no matter which field I'm in, even though I'm in the task module, it's actually when I do this, it's looking for, anything that is related to that company. But long term, a global search is something I would like to have in here. And there's a lot of systems that have really nice UIs that I've seen that I want to use. So, if it was a global search, you press some hotkey and really get a pop-up or something that would, allow you to search. And then, similar to how we're showing in here, it would just list all those different activity types, whether it's, the chat or an email or a task, all in one based on that search.
Awesome. Well, this from a meetup perspective, this is some really rich content, and I'm looking forward to doing this again next September and
Yeah.
seeing your progress.
Yeah, hopefully by then we're actually launched. I'm really pushing now to get this to at least the point where I can, get all of you in here that want to, start looking at it and providing feedback. I mean, with any of this stuff, I know there are bugs in there. And I think with all of us, like you know how to, work around them, but I'm sure there are bugs that I haven't encountered yet or even thought of. So, here shortly, I hope to, allow some people in for some alpha testing, and just to get, initial feedback to help me, squash some of those issues before we really try to roll this out, to a larger audience.
I'd be happy to help. Look forward to it.
Same here.
Yeah, likewise.
So you went from a East Coast of the United States, Keith, where it's full of real trees and seasons, and now you're in the desert. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the high desert. So, going back to that picture, I am close to, this is actually Lake Washoe, which is in the Reno area. I live south of Reno, closer to Carson City. But there are multiple, lakes. Lake Tahoe is the larger one. It borders both Nevada and California. And so, we moved to an area that we had a lot of outdoor adventure. My wife loves riding horses, so this is a big, horse area. There was actually a fire last week. It's still burning on this side of the mountain. It's burned like almost 6,000 acres.
Wow.
And there are wild horses that actually live on this land here. So there's actually an interstate that runs on this backside of the lake. But because of the fires, a bunch of the horses up here were traveling in a pack. There was probably at least 50 of them down the road. And people were stopping so that the horses could, run away from the fire essentially. But there's just all types of activity out here, from snow skiing to water skiing to, mountain biking and hiking and, all of those activities. We really love being outside. And so this was really a good place for us to be, because you've got, roughly 300 days a year of sunshine. And so, we're loving it so far.
Wonderful. And I've heard stories about the desert blooming. That's in the spring, I assume?
I don't know. I mean, around here we're, since the high desert, like you can see a lot of like pine trees up here, but in most areas it's like the sagebrush and some grasses. And so, in the wintertime, there is some snow, so they get precipitation. So I'm guessing maybe that blooming is, the water that is, it's saturated the ground over winter that allows the plants to bloom. Is that?
I just heard it's beautiful. I'd like to see it one day.
It is I mean, the smell out here is just amazing. Like the sage, between the sage and the lavender, those are like the two main things that grow around us. You walk outside most days and it's just like, all the air is filled with that scent. It's really lovely, smelling outside.
That's wonderful. You did add an extra bedroom to the house, didn't you?
Not yet. That's we got to get an architect and all that going. Right now is just trying to get settled, and we moved from a much larger house and across the country, and so we've downsized some, and still are trying to unpack and get everything situated. But yeah, the expansion of the house will be something that happens hopefully in the next year or two. Maybe if I can
Yeah.
get enough team members or people using Wappler or not Wappler, Bright Yard to be able to pay for it.
Yeah, I'll make that 2 rooms for when I visit.
All right. I mean, Brian, you've got the Aurora Borealis going on behind you, so it looks like wherever you're at is pretty nice.
Actually, I'm in the north of England, but we have had some really good aurora shows in the last few days. We're just far enough north to be able to get some quite good displays on occasions. But
Yeah, you can
you'd never actually see it by the naked eye. It really needs a camera to bring the colors out.
You can hear we actually, I think this year there was enough of solar activity that it was visible in the night sky up here, because we're at an elevation of about 5,000 feet, and then those mountain tops are the higher ones are about 9 to 10,000 feet.
My son is heading your way, Brian, Monday. He attends the University of York, so he's going back to school.
I actually did a semester at York University. Oh, I hate to say how long ago now. It must be about 35 years ago. As part of a course I was doing then. It's a really nice place. Really nice place. Yeah.
Yeah, he got to play in the Roses on the lacrosse team last year.
Yeah. I'm about 80 miles north of there.
Nice.
I'm on the edge of Newcastle upon Tyne.
Did you play lacrosse, Brian?
No. Lots of drinking.
Yeah, that's what my son said. They know how to drink, his teammates.
Well, you got to go with your strengths, I guess.
Sure have.
All right. Well, listen, I want to thank you again, Keith, for carving the time out to show us your Bright Yard site. I'm sure you've got some anxious Wapplers that would be more than happy to help you out with some bug reporting. And it was a wonderful presentation. It's a fabulous site. And before you sell this to Apple or get assimilated by Microsoft, please give us a call.
Yeah, well, I just really appreciate the opportunity to be able to showcase this, and I know we've had some challenges of actually getting me on due to the move and everything, but I really appreciate it. And just a shout out to George and Patrick and Theodore and everyone else who have really just built a system that allows us to even have the possibilities of building these types of apps is amazing.
It is indeed. It is indeed. Very good. Well, we're coming up toward the top of the hour here. So I'm going to sign off for this month's Wappler, this month's meetup. I want to thank everybody again for joining us, and I wish everybody a very safe and prosperous rest of the month. And we look forward to seeing you again in October. Be well, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Well done, Keith.